Well, recently I listened to a podcast by my recovery buddy, Matt Dobscheutz, and he was talking about the one thing that he had practiced, which more than anything, he gave credit to for his 15 years of sobriety from porn. And I listened to that. I'm going, that is such good stuff. I know a lot of you listeners also listen to Porn Free Radio, but I wanted to have Matt come on and kind of expand on a few of the concepts that he was talking about there, simply because I found them so helpful, and I think they'll be helpful for you as well. So Matt Dobscheutz today on Finding Traction. Welcome aboard.
Guys ready?
When it comes to porn, are you stuck, spinning out, or slipping backwards in your life? If so, then welcome to the Finding Traction podcast, a show dedicated to those who are looking to gain recovery momentum away from porn and toward the life and relationships they have always hoped for. Now, here's your host, Vern Tomke.
Well, before we get to my interview with Matt, let me just say that if you are looking for help to walk away from porn and towards a much, much better life, first of all, I want to encourage you to sign up for the Circle Learning Platform. On there, you can get a whole bunch of free resources to just some documents, some worksheets, some planning tools to help you begin to navigate your way around how do I actually begin to take those first few steps. Also on there, you'll get access to the first couple free lessons on the 52-week Finding Traction course. It's a video course that I take men through. And if you're also interested in joining a Finding Traction group, we take men through their first full year of recovery from porn. If any of those interest you, I'd love to connect with you. My email is bandofbrothers.care@gmail.com. You can also reach out to me if you'd like to do a free Zoom call. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your story, and we'll see if there's any ways that I can be of help to you. All right, guys. So without further ado, here is my interview with Matt Dobscheutz. Well, guys, all the way from frigid Midwest United States, I want to introduce my recovery brother from another mother, Mr. Matt Dobscheutz. Matt, welcome back to Finding Traction.
Once again, back is the incredible.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. That's wonderful.
Well, I thought that we'd have to start with the obvious. First of all, I want to say that I'm sorry for your loss. Last time I listened to your podcast, you were still riding high. And, I know that a lot of good things in football have to come to an end, but you surprised us all this year, Matt.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I mean, it was a great year, a step forward for us. It felt really good. I watched the NFC Championship yesterday and was bored out of my mind watching those two teams play. And the AFC Championship was even worse.
Yeah.
I don't, I like a couple of those receivers, but other than that, the most boring quarterbacks, it's just super boring. So
okay.
I can't wait. I just hope we're able to build on something next year and come back, because I feel like the world needs a good Chicago Bear team.
Well, hopefully you don't follow the pathway of Washington Redskins and regress to the mean. We're going to go with that optimism, but thank you for a great season. So we're sorry.
You mean the Commanders?
Commanders. Yes. Thank you. Oh my goodness. All right. Also, I want to say congratulations on 15 years porn free. I listened to episode 365, which is called The One Thing That Made 15 Years Porn Free Possible. And I want to say to all of my listeners, and many of them listen to both mine and your podcast, but if you have not listened to that podcast, you have to listen to it. Congratulations, Matt.
Wow. This is just a real celebration. Thank you so much for this, this glow up, as the kids would say.
We gotta look at good things. There's enough negative things out there. Man, let's celebrate some good things.
Well, I appreciate being on your podcast. I think people have definitely found your podcast because I'm getting people name dropping you and check-ins. Um, and just and you're kind of like Beyonce. You just have to say Vern. You
Oh
you
my
don't say
goodness.
you don't have to say Vern Tomke. You
Oh.
just say Vern's podcast.
Well, I'm not sure I'd like the name that was given me, but it not many Verns that I run across. So I do have a lot of Matts in my life, but not many Verns. So I guess there is something to be said for that. Well, let's dive into. I want to ask you a couple questions that came out of that podcast that I found really intriguing. You spoke about something that you called a normal state of mind that has come to kind of represent your average day in long-term recovery. Tell us a little bit more about that, because I'm sure many of the listeners long for something that, what you've described. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, the state is actually neutrality or neutral.
Okay.
It's a neutral state. So it's like I'm aware of porn and arousing things that are out there, but I'm kind of neutral to it. It's there.
Right.
It's on the platforms. It's in the world, but it's not part of my world. And I know it's there, but I'm not part of it. A way you might think about it is like someone who gives up alcohol, which I've also done, and I just got to a year of that.
Okay.
What's interesting is, there's no alcohol in my house now.
Right.
When I go to a party now, usually I just bring some NAs or something for me to drink.
Right.
And now, if other people are drinking, it's like not even it's like it's not. I see the alcohol. I remember what it tastes like and what it felt like,
Hmm.
but I'm kind of neutral to it now.
Right.
Someone said, "Hey, is it okay if I have this drink right now in front of you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Like I'm not going to
Right.
drink it."
Right.
I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Well,
So it's like a neutral state.
and this might seem like an over the top example, but it's like early on working with guys, it's almost like they've been had gasoline poured over them. They're walking around drenched in gasoline, smelling of gasoline, and now they're just trying to keep away from any open flame, unless it ignites them, kind of thing. And it's that trepidation, that sense of vulnerability. It's so encouraging to hear. Longer you go through this, that recedes in many ways.
Well, yeah. But I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking that it isn't just time that creates that state. It's
Okay.
it's skills.
Right.
Um, like I think one thing that I talk about in the podcast, the One Thing podcast, is the one thing that I can point to that I started doing very in earnest, especially over the last 15 years, was anything that created craving, I was stepping back from. So I was not taking the first drink, so to speak, or I
Okay.
wasn't doing the first click that would start to potentially build craving. And the more you withdraw from those decisions, then you do kind of, you do sort of stay
Hmm.
in that neutral state. But that took skills, though. That
Right.
took like being in group, being honest, having a plan, having
Yep.
consequences, like building tools in my life. It just wasn't abstinence that created that. It wasn't like, oh, I got to 30 days and now I don't need any skills to stay
Right.
in this neutral state. No, I still needed skills. And so checking things in upstream, getting, staying really honest with myself, all those things had to be built up to start to get into this. So it's not like I just walk around and go, "Oh, fire doesn't bother me anymore. I'm
Right.
fine." It's more like, "No, I you know, got all the gas off me and I don't go around gasoline anymore. So when I do
Hmm.
see fire, I don't blow up."
I guess you're not gaslighting people. Okay, that's a bad one.
I
Leave
love it.
it. Well, it's interesting because what I hear is those skills, those habits that got me here have to continue. Let me give you an example from my last week that I think will bear that. I like comedians. I have got into a habit when I have an extra 10, 15, 20 minutes to watch YouTube shorts. And my favorite comedians are like Nate Bargatze and similar guys like that. I love Norm Macdonald, SNL skits. So I'm watching some, I got maybe
Wait,
20
Nate
minutes.
Margetzky and Norm Macdonald, those are two very different
They
kind of
are.
guys.
One's clean, one's not so clean. But Norm's a Canadian, so he gets a little bit of a pass for
I
me.
mean, I love Norm. I put Norm on my Mount Rushmore of
Yes.
comedians. So
Yes.
it's just funny that
I
you
know.
put
I
him in
know.
the same category as Nate Bargatze, but I get it.
Well, they started coming up. Well, I'm watching these shorts, and then all of a sudden, you get to down here, you go to the next one, and literally for the first time, there is this seductive, half undressed girl walking towards me. And Matt, the word that came to my mind is transfixed. I was transfixed. And I hit scroll down and I hit scroll, like arrow down and arrow down. And I hit arrow up and went back to her. I did that twice and I go, oh my goodness, I was transfixed. And I'm going, okay, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And so I'm going, as a habit, a skill I've developed was I never want the same thing to happen twice. So I went on ChatGPT and it said, download this extension and it will remove YouTube shorts from your feed. Done. But I wouldn't have done that if I didn't have a plan. I didn't check it in. I didn't have the skills. I would have simply gone back and continued that with what you're describing.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's a great example of that. And I just had one recently. I was reading the news this morning, and
Mhm.
I'm almost um as detached from the news as you can possibly be and still be a citizen of the world. Like
We
I
call it
mean,
mental health, Matt.
I don't read social media, so I'm not getting social media posts.
Right?
I I did get the paper during the pandemic. I should probably go back to that
Hmm.
because I'm only hearing about things when they get really bad or something bad happens.
Right?
So I wanted to read about one particular thing, and so I was on a news site, and at the bottom of the news site, this is this morning, there was this really informative article. A celebrity, which I appreciate,
Hmm.
went shopping without a brassiere on. That was now I don't. That wasn't the headline. The headline
Hot
was
off the press. Wow.
famous person
Yeah.
shops at market without you know what.
Yes.
Now, when I saw that, luckily I was like, hey, aren't I doing that podcast with Vern today?
For-
That was helpful that I had this
yes.
on the calendar. But I said to myself, you know, I would really like to read this article and see what
Mm,
what this is like. What might
mm,
I'm interested.
right.
But then immediately I thought, if I click on this, it may not burn me today, but it is going to take me out of that state of neutrality. It's going
Right.
to this is going to engage craving. This is a quote I had on the podcast. Craving isn't something that happens; it's something you actively do, and that comes from the Freedom Model for Addictions by a couple of different guys: Slate, Shireen, and Dunbar. And
Okay. Can I? I,
yeah,
I
yeah,
want to. I want to ask you about that quote because most guys would say, "I don't know that that's the case." I get hit with craving, and it hits me kind of like what you described, Vern, with that YouTube thing, and so you're telling me that I'm engaging craving. Like Tell me what you mean by that, because most of us would feel like we get hit by craving like a windstorm or something.
Well, in my particular case, just today, I really felt to click that is to
Right.
say is it's kind of to say yes to craving. It's like I don't know what's behind this link. I don't know what I might see,
Hmm.
how I might be affected by it, but by clicking it, it potentially opens the door to craving.
Right.
One could say that you've already had some challenges with YouTube shorts in the
Hmm.
past.
Yep.
And so to just be on that platform potentially engages craving.
Right.
So you were on YouTube shorts and all of a sudden then seductive woman comes on and you're like, and now you got a problem.
Yep.
And so, but when I look back at relapses and when I look back at slips, I see, 90%, maybe that's too high, maybe 90, 80%, 80% of the craving that occurred started with me
Hmm.
in indulging a thought that I can handle
Right.
this, hovering, scrolling back up. Did
Yeah.
I see what I thought I
She's
saw?
still there. She's
She's
still
still
there, Matt.
there. Boy, let me go back to that site and see if that ad pops. Oh, the ad popped up again.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
And there's this playing that we do, this like lack of honesty with ourselves about what my role is in this. Even the double look,
Hmm.
you see someone in public, you're kind of drawn to her, and then it's like, oh, let me look one more time to make sure I saw what I thought I saw. Those are places where you're engaging craving. And here's the thing that happens with guys who are who have not gotten into solid recovery and healthy recovery. Um, those things are so automatic.
Right.
Those things are so like you're just really good at quickly spotting
Hmm.
the woman in the crowd that you're drawn to, that you don't even, it doesn't even feel like you're making a choice.
Right.
It's like, I had Craig Pera on my podcast, maybe 10 years ago. And he said, he could see a pair of boobs at 50 clicks. It's like he was like a trained sniper.
Right.
And you're like, well, what is that? Is that the woman's body is creating craving in you, or have you created almost a system that's constantly scanning and
Mm.
glassing your environment? That was a word that one of the hunters in my groups shared.
Hmm.
Glassing is where you take your scope and you look, you kind of look through
Okay.
the forest and you're looking for that deer popping out. And he referred to glassing as being in public where he's just got the scope out and
Right.
just looking for something interesting. That was like an automatic habit. When he started realizing, oh, this is what I do at the mall. I'm glassing right now. This is so in the past, what would happen is he'd be glassing and then he'd see someone who drew his attention and then he'd be like, oh my God, now I'm having craving. Cravings here.
Right.
But the glassing came first. Even the idea that he's scanning and looking, even if it's subconsciously, that's where he's creating craving.
Yeah, and I think what I hear from you is even creating a difference between interest, curiosity, becoming aware that that is different than craving, that second look, that glassing. And we become aware of what we're doing going into situations. Well, let me go to this one thing then, because I know you kind of referenced it from a great quote from the big book. The idea is not the problem is the 10th drink or the 10th look. The problem is the first one. What was the reference point that you were basing that off? And why has that been so instrumental for you to get the length of sobriety you've had?
Well, what they say, the exact line they say we are without defense against the first drink. And what they're basically saying is once you take the drink, all bets are off.
Hmm.
Maybe you're gonna, and for like the hardcore alcoholic, maybe that means you end up in a ditch. Maybe that means you end up at the bar all night.
Right.
But if you start to build skills in your life, you start to grow, you start to build healthy recovery patterns. If you can avoid that first drink, all of a sudden then you start banking sobriety. But it's not just sobriety from abstaining, it's by doing practices, by leaning into recovery. And if you're able to stay in that state of not taking the first drink, that's where you start to get into the neutral state. Now, what I see a lot of times with guys we work with, they're never really in a neutral state.
Right.
Even when they have a couple days of porn-free abstinence, they're still doing searches, clicking on things. They're still sort of engaging thoughts in public. They're glassing. They're still sort of this active craving cycle. And it's like they just haven't looked at porn.
Right.
But if you start to pull it back and go, what's the first drink here? Is the first drink clicking on insert, porn address into your browser? Or is the first drink indulging a thought that, you're entitled for a little break and I'm going to scan news sites that are a little questionable, or I'm going to look at the junk mail in my, Yahoo spam folder, or I'm going to do some other little thing that doesn't feel like I'm crossing boundaries. Maybe I don't even notice it. Maybe it's habit. I'll give you an example. I don't have Facebook on my phone anymore.
Okay.
I don't have Instagram on my phone anymore. I don't have Twitter on my phone anymore. I have TikTok right now, but I'll probably take it off when we get off the call. I was kind of keeping it on TikTok for a little bit for the Bears run.
Text me to bookend it with me. See, there you go. Good skill.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. I haven't gotten into trouble with TikTok, but the reason I took off those other apps is because at some point I was presented with something like the video that you talked about, and all of a sudden it created craving. Now, and then I had a problem.
Yep.
I then had to check something in, or I had to take it off. I had to do something. Otherwise, I knew if I kept opening up that app, I potentially would put myself in a really vulnerable position. So I took it off. What's interesting is when I took Facebook off my phone for maybe a week or so, I would pick up my phone, open it up, and then some part of me, like I had a limb amputated, I would feel like I should be doing something right now. I should be looking at Facebook. And then I realized, oh my God, this is the habit that I had of just picking up my phone and checking Facebook.
Phantom pain.
Yeah. I had phantom pain for Facebook. And at some point you pick up your phone, and if you've taken your phone and made it a neutral device again, by eliminating these things that create craving, guess what becomes really boring? Your phone.
Right.
Your phone is boring. Sometimes I have to tell myself, today we were going to meet and I wasn't sure what time we're going to meet. I had to tell myself, go on your phone and check your texts to see if Vern texted you.
Right.
And you might be, Matt, didn't you see my text? No, not really.
Right.
Because I'm kind of bored. My phone is like work email and texting, which is pretty much work.
Sure.
And then there's nothing else really fun about my phone. So I can go several hours without looking at it. But in the past, when I had those apps, I would just pick it up instinctively. And even the week after, I'm still picking it up.
Right.
So back to your question about guys don't engage craving. It's like, well, what is it that makes me pick up a phone and look at it even when there's nothing to look at? There's a habit there that was sort of that created. And then, these app companies aren't stupid.
Yep.
They know about the slot machine effect. They know about some of these reward systems. So they're feeding it. So if you just have a phone right now and you haven't even thought about how you interact with it, you haven't even given that extra thought of what's my role in this? It's BS. I don't know if, I know you got some pastors who listen to this podcast, but I mean, it's complete BS, right? You're literally just opening this device that potentially has all these challenges, and you're telling me you're not involved with creating craving. You're just helplessly being ensnared. Come on, you got to be honest.
Well, to quote a certain political leader, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, Matt. How's that? So that's obscure. We'll leave that one
Justin
alone.
Trudeau, who was that?
That was Mark Carney. There we
Who
go.
is that? I don't even know who that is. Is
I
that a
know. There you
Canadian?
go. No, that's he's going with Katy Perry now. He's busy. So let me push back there for a second to not be on the menu. I
Oh,
actually
okay. I get where you're going with that.
you got me going with that. The idea is we are actually it's the AA quote is we are without defense to the first drink. To be more accurate, the only defense we do have is to the first drink. We don't have a defense to the second, third, and fourth drink. Where our defenses come in are actually before the first drink. That's the only time that we can employ true defenses in that way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I mean, it might be a little bit of the semantics of the language. I think what they're saying in that phrase is something like, when you take the first drink, that's when there's like all the safety's off. So yeah, there is that sense of like, it does say this, it has kind of this lost power. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. So, and there's a big debate about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we legitimately out of control, or do we want to be in a state of out of control? And that's kind of a deep idea about addiction and the way people talk about it. But that's how it feels when
Right.
you are in that automatic behavior and you are
Yeah.
getting slammed, and you make a decision to leave porn and stop using it, and then you go back to it the next day. You feel like that. You feel like, I have no choice here.
Right.
Just cravings just coming. I have no response to it. But that's where building skills and tools come into play. I was thinking about this last night, thinking about you getting on the call with me. I did a podcast on this a long time ago. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi.
Okay.
He was a guy at UFC who studied a lot of workplace psychology, and I'm butchering his name, but you can look it up. He wrote a book. He wrote a book called Flow.
Okay.
He said, they did a lot of studying of employees and how employees work, and when an employee is new on a job, they have a lot of challenges because they don't know the job and they don't have a lot of skill.
Right.
Right. And when you have a lot of challenge and no skills, it's really overwhelming. It's a really overwhelming state.
Mm-hmm.
Now, likewise, if you were hired for a job that was beneath you, like let's say you're a world-class chef and you're working at Red Robin,
Right.
you
Hey, don't
might,
put down Red Robin and those Whiskey River barbecue burgers.
right. I knew you would. I know you're I know that you're a passionate Red Robin supporter.
But I'm working with you. Keep going.
Right. So that chef who signs up now, he would have the opposite problem.
Right.
He would have a ton of skill and the challenge would be low. And so instead of being anxious about his job, what would he be? Any ideas?
Bored.
He'd be bored.
Yeah.
So what Mihai Csikszentmihalyi kind of presented was, what you have to do with your employee development is you have to help them build skills to overcome challenges. And you give them a little bit of challenge and help them build the skill to meet it.
Right.
And then you give them a little more challenge and help them build another skill. And that's what's the flow state. The flow state is where we're building skills to overcome challenges, but at a level that's manageable. And as long as the challenge isn't too much, so we can grow in building skills, we stay in the flow state. If the challenge is too high and our skills are too low, we get anxious, we get
Right.
overwhelmed. If it's too easy,
Mm-hmm.
we take the foot off the gas and we get bored. So,
I like that. Yeah.
so one of the things that we're talking about here is, um, if you're overwhelmed because everything feels like craving, you're feeling like you're walking around soaked in gasoline and everywhere
Mhm.
there's a match, that to me says you don't have any skills.
Right.
You haven't even done the basics. You're just kind of going through life getting tossed and turned by everything that comes at you. And as we've determined, the internet, phones, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Well, that's totally wired to take advantage of your lack of ownership.
Up in flames.
Right. And I don't think a lot of guys are coming to us because they're not overwhelmed by the challenges.
Right.
It's, most people listening don't have more skills than they need. They probably need more skills like connecting with others, being honest, looking at your environment, assessing what the threats are, eliminating threats, and
Mm-hmm.
the big idea in that podcast I did was, hey, what's the one thing that you could do that by doing it would eliminate or reduce the problems you're having? So it's very possible that guys even listening right now, there's one thing in your life right now that if you took action on, if you changed your relationship with that particular behavior or pattern, you might be porn free for another couple days in a row than you're getting right now. You would start to get different results. For example, I'll give you a really simple one. For a long part of my life, when I did relapse, when I did look at porn, it was almost always after 11 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And you might say, well, Matt, what's so unique about 11 o'clock? And I go, I don't know. I don't know what it was about 11 or 10 p.m. that was a big deal. One time I was coaching a cable executive. This is early on in Porn Free Radio.
Yep.
And he said, Matt, we know that guys are kind of horny at about 10 or 11 o'clock at night. That's why there's cheeky programming on, even on basic cable. They'll try to sometimes put stuff on a little more racy at that time because people are just horny. They're probably delaying going to bed. And so that time is a really, that time is a really hot time to try to get eyeballs if you're a cable exec. So that's what I noticed in my pattern. So what would have happened if I would have had a commitment to go to bed with my wife? That's one of the things I did early in recovery.
Yeah.
If I go to bed every night with my wife and my wife goes to bed at 10:30, it essentially eliminates most of the prime time that I would act out.
Well,
So
it's like
that was one of the first commitments I ever made. That was one of the first commitments I ever made, and it was one of the more effective ones. Now, there were other things with restrictions and tools and things like that, but that one was a big one. And why? Because it eliminated the time when I was most vulnerable.
Well, it's a little bit like you're sharing. I can see this, like, I'm going to do this one thing and it's going to remove 70% of the ways I act out. Okay. And then at some point, I'm going to come to the next step and it's going to remove 70% of how I'm acting out. And you can see how it builds momentum just as you begin, as long as you're aware and you're not playing stupid with yourself and go, I can't do this, or I'm not willing to do that. That's a different ballgame. And you're hoping for the changes to happen without taking those steps. Okay, let me end on a final question here, and I want to play a little bit of an alternate reality, Matt. And I want to ask, your podcast, you talked about 15 years of essentially being porn free, and I want to say, being porn free has brought you certain benefits, certain things in your life. And I would like you to play a bit of a game with me to say, how is the Matt of today who's porn free different from the same old version of Matt if you had not gone down this whole path of being porn free and recovery. Can you can you play a little bit of that game with me to say how has that played out?
All
Or
right. So
where do you think
so
the
where
new
would I
version of
be? Where would I be if this didn't happen, or where would I be? What would it be like? Like, what's the question?
the question is, what is the difference between the Matt of having done all of these skillful pathway changes, things in your life, and where the Matt would be without taking this journey?
Hmm. I I think the short answer is I was really alone and
Hmm.
isolated. I was really, I wrote the book Porn Free, but I actually was going to call the book. Um, this is a few years ago when I was writing it. I was going to call it like The Divided Man.
Hmm.
Like I lived what I felt like was almost like a divided life. I
Right.
had this external life that I showed people. And, it was a little bit how, well, man, I just kicked something in my office here. It was a little bit how I show up now. I was kind of
Hmm.
funny. I was gregarious. I was a nice guy. I was smart. Like some of the
Hmm.
things that I am now, I was still that.
Yep.
But it was more like I really wanted people to just see this acceptable image.
Okay.
But meanwhile, all the things internal I was hiding. And I wasn't just hiding my porn behaviors and my sneakiness. I was hiding things like things that I was upset about. I was hiding wounds and trauma and grief from the past. There was a whole
Hmm.
bunch of things I was hiding that no one saw,
Right.
which just made me feel more alone and isolated. So one of the things that was the biggest benefit to being porn free, and this started even 10 years before the last 15 years, this
Yep.
has been a 25-year journey for me, is the integration. Like
Hmm.
I'm much more the same on the inside as on the outside. Like when I'm talking to you right now, I'm not hiding.
Right.
I I feel like the real me. Like I feel even as when I do the podcast.
Right.
I feel like some of the guys who listen to the podcast, especially those guys who've been listening to all like 300 or 400 episodes, I feel like sometimes they might know me better than even some friends in my life
Right.
because when I do the podcast and get into that flow state, I do reveal, I do open, and that makes me feel integrated. I feel like, yes, I'm not hiding anything here. Um,
Hmm.
and that's been the biggest difference is that internal sense of being intact. We talk about integrity a lot in
Hmm.
Christian circles or in faith circles, and we think it's like this character trait, like, hey, that's a man of integrity or he was born with integrity. But the way I use integrity is wholeness, intactness, right? That ship's hull doesn't have any holes in it. It has integrity. It's going to float if you put it in water.
Right.
My life floats now. There's no
Hmm.
holes. There's no holes under the hull that are taking in water and I'm trying to hide it and make it look like everything's okay.
I love that. Yeah.
And even when there are things that come up, guess what? They're not hidden anymore.
Yep.
I'm talking about. I'm open about. I'm bringing them to my group. I'm bringing them to the guys in my life that support me. Here's what's coming up for me now. It's like what you said, right? Here's the 70% now. What do I need to
Yep.
do with this thing?
Yeah.
And I don't have any shame about it anymore because I don't have to present one image and keep it together. My image now involves imperfection, the gift of imperfection. Like there's things that I'm still
Right.
working on. And I don't have to hide those things. I can actually ask for help, support, insight, wisdom. I don't have to fear looking bad. So all those things are better. and
Right.
and I'm not perfect. I still have to,
Mhm.
I run into self-rejecting thoughts, and sometimes I still fall into sneaky behaviors. Sneaky behaviors aren't as dangerous as they used to be,
Right.
but unchecked, they
Yep.
can be,
Sure.
right?
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, that's what I would say now.
Well, Matt, I want to just say on behalf of all your listeners and our listeners, we have all benefited and been blessed by the changes you've undergone and the level of wholeness that we see, imperfect as it is, in your life. So thank you on behalf of so many guys for your faithfulness, for just walking this journey out in 15 years. So here's to 15 more years. Here's to a great year for the Bears next year, and that they would not return to the mean. And have a hopefully your weather warms up. And again, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, well, thank you for your work and your collaboration and friendship over these years. Um, there's been a couple of relationships that I've made because of the podcast, and you're
Mm,
one of them. And I think that's a gift. It's a
yeah.
gift. I mean, you and I both pretty much work out of our houses.
Hmm.
We've never met in person, but
Yep.
yet we've talked hours and hours and hours over the years.
Yeah.
And we'll have to change that one of these
Yeah.
years. I thought when the Cowboys came and got their butts kicked at Soldier Field, you would have come into town for that. That would have been a great day for
Yeah.
me.
I wore the
But
wrong hat for enough weeks. So
but
yeah.
one day we will see a Cowboys Bears game.
Yes,
Hopefully in the playoffs. That'd be great.
that would be great. All right. Well, blessings on you, Matt. Thanks again.
All right, be well.